I just want to talk real quick about just a little Altoids first aid can that I've made. I like to repurpose these Altoid cans. Part of it's kind of nostalgia. Reminds me when I was a little kid and seeing these. My grandparents had them or whatever. I used a piece of a bike tube that I'd cut, like we talked about in the last video. On this is real basic. I just have a couple things in here. This is not any James Bond or Jason Bourne first aid kit. It's not going to stop bullet wounds or massive, cuts or burns, but it's got a couple of just things in there. One, I just put a couple allergy pills because I get allergies here in Oregon. I put different size of Band-Aids in there and a couple of Q-tips. And, again, it's kind of one of those things where it just gives you a couple of things like Band-Aids and that kind of thing. I also put super glue in here. This is probably this or the Band-Aids I've used the most. So we were at the coast at a beach house with our friends, and their son dropped a jar of hot sauce and cut his foot open. He was barefoot, cut his toe open. And it was bad enough that it was bleeding, but it wasn't bad enough that it needed stitches, which is good since the nearest hospital was probably 25 miles away. So it wasn't life-threatening or anything like that, but I busted out my super glue that I just picked up at Harbor Freight, and we just glued his toe, and it stopped the bleeding, and then we didn't have to worry about it. I've also used it when our same friends, their daughters cut her head open at the coast, and so we just were able to put some super glue in there and keep it from, continuing to bleed. And you can get these at Harbor Freight or Walmart or anything like that. They're really inexpensive, but it stops the bleeding when it's in an inconvenient spot or Band-Aids aren't going to work or that kind of thing. But I do have some bigger Band-Aids. I've got some small ones, things like that. And then I'm throwing my Q-tips all over. But then I take a popsicle stick and I just cut it in half, and you can use that for finger splint and that kind of thing. So we were actually camping out with a youth group, and one of the girls jammed her finger pretty badly. So we just put those on there and wrapped it in duct tape. And the next day she was able to use her finger. I think it had just immobilized it enough. It wasn't a major injury or anything, but immobilized it enough that she was able to use it the next day. And then one of the last things I have in here is just it's a tampon. It's wrapped in plastic right now, so it kind of keeps it tight and everything, but I can use that. You can shove it up your nose for a bloody nose. You can stick it in if you've got a fairly bad cut and you're not able to get immediate attention. Can help a little bit. So those are things I just throw in that kit. I've got it all scattered around now, but it keeps it in a nice compact thing. I throw it in my bag. I carry one of these in my camelback when I'm out mountain biking like today, and I've just got a little bit of stuff with me. So for just a few dollars, you could buy an assorted pack of Band-Aids, spread it out through a couple of kits, a couple of popsicle sticks and some Q-tips, and it gives you a pretty good little first aid kit.